Are you a film fan who loves the ultimate home video experience? Look no further than The Disconnected. Your host, Ryan Verrill, is your go-to source for the latest and most accurate information on home video releases, exclusive interviews with industry insiders and filmmakers, and has established a thriving community where every film and physical media enthusiast feels welcome. From hidden gems to blockbuster hits, The Disconnected brings you insider knowledge and a welcoming space to share your love of cinema. Watch every Thursday night at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific for the live announcements show and follow The Disconnected on social media to stay updated. Subscribe to The Disconnected on YouTube or on the podcast provider of your choice and dive into a world where every movie night is an adventure.
Hello and welcome to Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys. My name is Hunter. In this podcast, I'll be joined by a different guest each week to discuss a classic Western movie or TV show. I've been a fan of classic Westerns for as long as I can remember, and in recent years, they've become very nostalgic for me. I love the aesthetic, the tropes, and I love seeing different filmmakers' takes on them. At their best, they're incredibly entertaining, rewatchable, and some of my all-time favorite movies are Westerns. We'll mostly focus on Western movies made in Hollywood, but we'll also be covering spaghetti Westerns, and one thing I'm very excited to get into are Western TV shows. I've got some amazing guests coming on the show, film professors, historians, and podcasters. And Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys is part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, and many guests on the show will be from other shows on the network. Thanks for listening.
Hello, this is Aaron West. I am the author of the A24 New Wave. In this book, I look at A24's output and I make the argument that we are in a new wave movement right now. A24 plays a major role. This book has a supplemental podcast where each episode is a brief conversation about an A24 related topic, whether an actor, director, or even a genre. As I continue research for the book and conduct interviews, I expect to record podcast episodes with people involved with the company. You can find the podcast at cinejourneys.com or wherever you find podcasts, and we are proud to be members of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
We're in Wave Media.
Welcome to The Life and Times with Captain Barney Miller. I'm your host, Mike White. Joining me, of course, is the rookie, Mr. Chris Dashew.
I promise everyone, this is not a wig.
Coming all the way down from Internal Affairs, Mr. Otto Bruno.
Oh, wow. Are you guys that upset with me because I missed the last season that I've gotten demoted to Internal Affairs with Scanlon?
No, Internal Affairs, you're coming down to crack some skulls. Tell us what we're doing wrong here. Plus, I've been on the take this entire time. So,
oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
I never would have thought it was you, Mike. I always would have thought it was your pal Fredo there.
On this podcast, we talk about Barney Miller. And on this episode, we are cracking into the 7th season. What does this have in store for us? Who bought this wig? What the hell's going on with the 12th precinct? We are talking about a two-parter that starts off the 7th season, Homicide Part 1 and Part 2, which aired October 30th, 1980 and November 6th, 1980, and The Delegate, which aired November 13th, 1980. In Homicide, we have a very special episode of Barney Miller, but we don't really realize that it's a very special episode until that second part. First part, pretty light and fluffy, even though these guys are being told that they have to switch. We are specializing now. Every single precinct is going to be specializing in a different crime, and the old one too is going to be the homicide department. Homicide, life on the streets.
Who do you want to jump in first? Because I'm gonna let Chris and you.
Otto is just shaking his fucking head. You know what, Otto? As you are our guest, you can go first because I know you have feelings because I've read your book.
Well, there you go. Yes, I do have feelings that I make very clear in the book. This season opening twofer, I say in the book, and I still feel that way. It was a severe miscalculation, in my opinion, on the part of the writers. It amazed me then. It amazed me while I was doing the research and talking to some of these guys. And it continues to amaze me that in my opinion, they so misread the Barney Miller audience. I have always said that one of the things I loved most about Barney Miller was that it tackled serious subject matter while always making the show funny. There are two other decidedly unfunny episodes in the series. One, of course, is Wojo's Girl, the second part 2 of Wojo's Girl, which really wasn't technically a part 2. It was an hour show when it came on the air originally in prime time. And then there's a one that I think is still coming up. I don't know if it's this season or next season with a Nazi. Nazi is never good. So that's a different one. But those two were not funny.
What about the rape episode, Otto?
I did not see that coming.
No one ever expects Nazis to be funny, really.
Well, the rape episode I always thought was more interesting from a cultural aspect because of the fact that, of course, at the time the rape episode was aired, which I think was 1977, I want to say, our society didn't consider that a woman could be raped by her husband.
Right.
Now, obviously, we feel differently nowadays, and I agree with that. But I'm just saying, at the time, it was handled differently because all of society looked at it differently. So it was a different thing. This homicide episode. First of all, I did rewatch it again today. Quite painful to have to do that. It almost never works in almost any part of the episode. It feels, you should pardon the pun, but the whole episode just feels kind of dead. It just kind of lays there. You know what I mean? And I'm talking about the episode, meaning the two together as one, not part 1 or part 2. When I talked to Tony Sheehan, and I think I wrote this in the book, but I'm not positive. When I talked to Tony Sheehan, who at that point was the showrunner, because this is one of the seasons that Danny Arnold was not at the helm. He had walked away for a couple of years due to his health situation. Tony Sheehan was a showrunner. And when I talked to Tony and I was asking him about this, and he basically responded like I was not the first person to have ever told him how angry this episode made me or this storyline made me. And he said, yeah, we were kind of surprised. We thought people would, I don't know if he said appreciate or find funny the irony of the situation. Can I give the spoiler alert? Can I tell them? What the problem is
that everybody has seen this episode before.
And of course, the problem is that Mr. Cotterman, who is a long-standing character, he has recurred, as I say in the book, whether it was this gentleman himself, which I'm blanking on the actor's name now.
Jack Somack.
Jack Somack, thank you. He used to do a lot of commercials as well. But whether it was Jack Somack as Cotterman or even like Lou Jacoby in the first season, who runs the deli, it's not Cotterman, but basically it is the same character that runs throughout the entire series. Somack, I think, played the character maybe 6 or 7 times. I don't know what it was, but we came, just like the 12th precinct, we came to know Mr. Cotterman as a friend. And when she had said that to me about, we were always surprised how people took that. And I'm like, well, what's there to be surprised about? Cotterman was a friend. No, he said, I know what it was. He said, well, no one seemed upset by the barber, the character that Jack Dodson plays, who kills his barber. And I said to Tony, I'm like, Yeah, because we don't know him. We don't care about him. And it's not that I don't care about his barber, but I didn't know his barber either.
Yeah, and we never see the barber. There's no personal connection to the barber.
Exactly.
This episode's very odd, well, for a lot of reasons, but one of them is it feels like because we talk a lot about the actors that show up on this show consistently, and Jack Dodson feels like he was just on this. I think it was within our last episode, Chris, we actually talked about Jack Dodson. So here he is again, and this time he's playing a character that I feel is much more close to his personality, let's say, because he can play creepy really, really well. Actually, I take it back. It was episode 16 of the 6th season. He was also way back in season 2, episode 10. But yeah, it just seemed like it feels like we just saw this guy. The next time that we talk, Chris, there's going to be another person that is coming back who we just saw in the last episode. It feels like there's even more actors like we just saw this person. So it feels like they're recycling them very close together right now.
This is without a doubt. This might be worse than Wojo's Girl. I mean,
no, not for me. Not for me.
I mean, it misses the mark with what it's going for really wide. Like it misses wide right real hard. I don't know who thought it was a good idea to be like, on this very special episode of Barney Miller, one of the characters that has been introduced 5 other times gets shot in the head point blank. Like it's like
rough.
Holy fuck, show. What are you doing? Why? Like, and it's never made clear why, other than to really just like make Barney and the rest of the precinct feel terrible, which they should. But like, the guy doesn't have to be murdered execution style point blank. Like, it's just that's like, fuck, that's excessive, don't you think, guys? Like, and you know what? It's really excessive in a way that this show that normally shows restraint, even though it has at one point offered up the idea that he is an alien, is a thing that this show has offered up in genuine earnestness, and this is something that could have worked, and it misses the mark. It misses the mark in a way that this show does not miss the mark. Outside of Wojo's Girl, which felt as poorly designed as this one did in a different way, but just still as poorly designed.
You guys are so upset about the storyline. I'm still stuck on the hair. I'm still thinking about Wojo's wig.
I told that to you at the end of last episode. I was like, wait for the hair, man.
Everybody. I mean, Harris's hair's gotten bigger. Dietrich's is curlier. Barney's is longer. I think you said the only person who's not changed is Levitt, and I'm for that. Please don't change these hairstyles, especially this weird wig that Wojo's wearing.
Well, of course, Max Gail never wanted to wear that. And again, it was Tony. I think it was Tony Sheehan or Jeff Stein, but I think it was Tony Sheehan who told me that at one point Max Gail had said to him, "Why don't we do a storyline where we discover that Wojo's been wearing a piece, a hair piece?" And Tony said, "Well, no, Max, because Wojo doesn't wear a hairpiece. Max Gail wears a hairpiece, but Wojo doesn't." But of course, as Chris has so subtly pointed out, it's so obvious now that, you certainly could get away with that storyline because it doesn't look genuine at all, unfortunately. And of course, Max, it in an interesting twist of how these things work, Max, if you've seen other work that he's done, is in no way vain about his baldness. He doesn't care about that in the least. In fact, he wanted the hairpiece off because he didn't want to work with the hairpiece. But basically, I think it was George Spiro Doby or DB, the guy who was the lighting guy, said, they would get too much of a glare from his forehead. So they wanted him, it was easier for him to wear a hairpiece. It made the lighting a little easier, but it's pretty obvious. It's not but again,
obvious, you say.
I've never really seen a hairpiece that I didn't know was a hair. I mean, I guess if I didn't know it, then it must have been good, but most hairpieces that I've ever seen in my whole life were pretty obvious.
Otto, you're up in the Northeast. You know about Maury's wigs, don't you?
Maury's wigs?
They don't come off.
Maury Amsterdam's wigs?
It's a Goodfellas reference.
No, I don't like Goodfellas.
Oh,
I'm not a
sorry.
Goodfellas guy.
Is there all up on the line here?
Yeah, I don't think. But now, and on another episode of Barney Miller, I'm not surprised to learn that they're surprised that people didn't like this episode, because I feel like it was done in earnest. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that they were trying to get a rise out of anybody. It's just, it feels like a really weird choice for a show that is normally a little bit lighter than, hey, one of the characters that you just saw, who you've seen plenty of times, got murdered in cold blood. Like, whoa. Also, while talking about a torso murderer at the same time, like, where is the light fun in this episode? Oh, it really ain't any.
Well, that was the thing I was thinking about. You know, we've talked on this show so many times, and Otto, you've really pointed out in the book that Barney is this negotiator, and so many people leave the precinct without ever really serving any time or really getting arrested. Charges are dropped, understandings are made. You can't do that in this episode, because when you've got the woman who's like, oh yeah, I hired this guy to kill my husband, and the husband comes in, you've got all this, drama between them. And I love this guy. I think he's the guy from, again, I think we just saw him. He's the guy from the Blues Brothers. They smell bad. The guy in the restaurant, shaped Paul. And you can't just say, well, you understand each other now. You're not going to have your husband murdered. You're free to go. You can't do that in this episode. You can't say that to Howard from Andy Griffith. Hey, it's all a big misunderstanding. Your hair looks fine. You're free to go. Nothing. You cannot let these people go. The only thing that is a carryover from the pre-homicide days in this episode is the whole conflict between Mr. Cotterman and his neighbor, the shop owner next door. This whole Arab versus Jew thing. And I'm so glad we're past that now, and that there's peace in the Middle East. I mean, thank you, Jared Kushner, for solving all that. So that was good.
I had forgotten that part, and then I'm watching it today. I'm like, holy hell, is that uncomfortably
Oh yeah.
like right and hitting the nail right on the head. Holy Christ.
I was laughing so hard when they talk about the skirmish that they had, and I think it's Harris said, and then a 6-minute war ensued.
Yes.
I lost my shit, and I was just like, would people understand that reference today? And also, I forgot how many hostage references there were in this episode as well. There's one in each part 1 and part 2. They make reference to the hostage situation, because that was going on, what was it, November 79 all the way up to January 81. So the hostages had been taken for a full year at this point.
Almost a full year.
Yeah,
exactly.
Wild.
When they started going back and forth, and he calls him says he's an Arab. We didn't introduce him as a Jew. It's like, oh no. I literally thought to myself, I was like, no, please don't go there. Like, for all of the things that the show has to do right now, please don't go there. And when it did, I was like, oh God, he said expansionist. Oh God. And it's just like, yep. Any other time, it probably wouldn't have been a thing at all. Like, we would have just been, I don't even think we would have said anything about it. Like, really, like, think about another time we do this show. We wouldn't have said anything. We'd be like, that's a weird joke. Would anybody you would probably have said, Mike, would anybody have gotten this? Like, in 2023. And now it's like, is there any way we get out from underneath it? Like,
well, since there's never really been peace in the Middle East in our lifetimes, I think we certainly would have mentioned it. The 6-day war versus 6-minute wars, for me, is more a fact that it's like nobody knows history anymore. That's how I think of it. But I mean, I did think their whole exchange in the cell with Vanessa Redgrave.
Yes,
Lynn Redgrave.
You mean Lynn? Yeah, that whole Zionist comment.
And the whole thing with house calls and Pernell Roberts and all that bonanza. I thought that was actually kind of funny.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That exchange. And I thought Ellen Ann McCleary, is that her name? The woman that plays the woman who wanted to kill her husband. Right. Like, normally I could find her and her delivery and all that stuff funny, but it just for some reason there's like such a pall over this whole episode that it just doesn't pop and it doesn't work, even though some of that stuff was funny, but it didn't work within the context of the show.
The episode is very brown, like for whatever reason, like all of it is very brown, and like the color brown ends up informing the tone of the episode. And you know what? Then we haven't even mentioned it yet. Like, in what fucking universe is the character that James Gregory is playing? This is like a weird Luger on top, like the strangest things. He's like, hey, yeah, like that's not a thing. Like this is like this again. Like who's writing these characters? Because all of a sudden it's everybody is just going against type, and they're just like, we're gonna do something new and fun with it. And it's like, you can do things new and different, but this might be a step too far. And also, I was going to mention this here. The thing with Harris and Trisha O'Neill is really not great.
No. Why is that? I thought you'd appreciate that. Why is it not great?
It's kind of predatory for a while. Like, I don't know. Like, it kind of is. I mean, like, they kind of retrieve it back at the end. But, like, it's weird because, like, I'm saying it's predatory because Harris has never been characterized that way before. Even when they did it with Dietrich, and they kind of did it with Dietrich at one point, and it seemed like, again, like it's more of just like a current read on it, less like a past read. It seemed kind of weird when it was, I think it was wasn't she like a witness or something? And he was like, oh yeah. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's just,
he was sitting on her like she was a nun.
Right. And so this was just,
she was a nun.
It was a different lady that he was really, Yeah, you're right. There was some predatory stuff. I mean, I really appreciated seeing this actress. I loved her, and she's in one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek. She's Captain Rachel Garrett of Enterprise C. I think we talked about her maybe on another podcast that we've done. But yeah, I liked her. I liked her character. I liked her whole artistic crime scene photos and all of that. Like, oh, you can keep the cute one. And then, Harris like dropping that he's a published author and all this stuff. But when he just keeps going after, I can see what you're talking about, Chris.
Yeah, it's just like, just chill, dude. Like, it's not a matter of it not being funny. It's just like you've run the joke into the ground, and now you're just making the character look like he's a fucking idiot, and he's not. Like, for most of the time, Harris is the smartest guy in the precinct other than Barney, at least in terms of being self-aware, because he's the only black man in the precinct. And normally he's much more self-aware than he seems to be. I mean, again, to your point, Otto, like, this episode is very weird because it feels like none of the characters are operating based off of the last 6 seasons. They're operating off of someone who maybe watched the show and is writing for the show now, as opposed to someone who's written for the show a lot and understands how to get the most out of these actors in their like 6th season in, 7th season characters.
Yeah.
There was one reference in this that I didn't get. Levitt is actually, it's in part 2, but Levitt is bringing in the man that was hired to assassinate Ben Piazza, David Chulton.
Yeah.
He says something to the assassin, like he calls him Mr. Sykes or Richard Jenkle, and I'm like, what? Who? What? Mr. Sykes is the character name. Richard Jenkle, it sounded like he called him. And I was like, I was like, is this like a murderer from 1980?
No, I'm trying to think. Is that the Sykes? Wait a minute. Was Sykes the character's actual name?
I think Sykes was the character's name. Yeah.
Alan Funt is what he said.
Well, Alan Funt, there's the guy who's locked in the trunk, and I'm not even sure if that's this episode. Is it?
Yeah.
And he says that people, it must be beginning of part 2, because beginning of part 1's the old lady that's passing bad checks, and that never comes back again, which is odd. Like, usually if they introduce something in the first part, they bring it back later. But yeah, there's the guy who was locked in his own trunk. I want to say, Chris, that was the next episode, the Delegate episode, but I could be wrong. But yeah, he is talking about how he was locked in there for like 4 fucking days. He smells like absolute garbage. Right. And he says that people were saying that it was Alan Funt that was in the trunk. So that was a camera
ref.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, when Levitt is bringing in the assassin guy, Vincent Sykes is the character's name. Michael Alamo is the actor's name.
Alamo, yeah.
I thought he called him Richard Jenkle, and I'm like, what is that? So Sorry, just to throw that out.
The only
there.
thing I think of is Richard Jekyll, who was an actor, but
right? Yeah, I was trying to look him up, and I was like, this doesn't make any sense. All right.
Yeah,
sorry.
I don't know. I didn't. I'm embarrassed to say I didn't even catch it. So I don't know. That one I don't know. That one I don't know about. But
I try to place these jokes if I can, because it's just, sometimes it's like, what the hell was that joke about?
Right. The other big problem I have with this two-parter, and Chris said something about, this very special episode, and those of us who, lived through that time remember those very special episodes, which were almost always episodes that I fucking hated. Okay? Yeah. Because again, I'm a guy who, if you're going to sell me comedy, I want comedy. I don't want a civics lesson. I don't want an ethics lesson. I don't want a morals lesson. I don't want anything. That's just me. But what's interesting, and Chris alluded to this at the very beginning, is that they didn't sell this like that. Okay, so it wasn't sold to us like that. So that's number one. We're really kind of blindsided once we get in there.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as we've been saying, those first 6 seasons, we were not prepared for anything like this. Chris makes the great point that to add insult to injury, then they describe to us how Mr. Cotterman was murdered, and that is literally like a kick in the nuts. I mean, that's 10 times worse. And again, they're trying to do too much in too short a time, because of course the other problem is, Harris comes in trying to hide his depression or disgust or whatever that first time, and he's having a Danish, but then he has one bite, and then all of a sudden he's totally depressed and throws it out like in a matter of, a snap of a finger in seconds. And of course, the biggest problem with all of this is after they put us through this hell in part 2, we find out Mr. Cotterman's been killed. That scene ends. We come back for what's essentially the epilogue, and they're no longer homicide. Nothing else is said. Nothing is said. They don't say how they got back to doing what they were doing, why they went back to doing what they were doing. We will never hear Mr. Cotterman mentioned ever again. It's not good. It's not good.
No. But the name Armin Tamzarian comes to mind. If any of you are familiar with the pop culture phenomenon that is The Simpsons, the episode "The Principal and the Pauper" is often seen as the moment where the show jumped the shark, because Principal Skinner was revealed to have not been the real Principal Skinner the whole time. It was actually a man named Armin Tamzarian. And then by the end of the episode, they literally run him out of town on a rail. And I believe the judge the judge that reoccurs in The Simpsons goes, there will never be referred to ever again. And if someone does, they'll be, under penalty of torture. So it's like, yeah. And it's like, this for me is like that level of just like the show jumped the shark. Why? Like for no good reason. Like what a terrible, like, here's the other thing we haven't mentioned, Otto. This is the first episode of season 7. Like, what the fuck were they thinking? Can you imagine watching this for the first time as a new viewer to the show and just being like, what is the, this is a funny show? Like, is this why are people watching this? When I would ask, why are you watching this show if you watch these 2 episodes? It's really a rough watch.
I don't know if I say it outright in the book, but I do feel, I think I said it in the book, but I'm not positive. I do think this is ultimately the weakest season, is season 7.
You do say that.
Because, because they do make a bit of a comeback in season 8. But yes, this season, definitely they lose their way. Season 6 without Danny, I thought they did pretty well, considering.
Oh, we liked season 6.
Yeah, considering they didn't have Dan.
I think we said it may be our favorite season of the show. Like,
yeah. So yeah, well, so then there you go. That makes it even all the more interesting, because the guys who were running things in season 6 are running things in season 7.
This would have fooled me.
This episode could give you whiplash. Like after they find out that the Mr. Cotterman is dead. And every time we say Cotterman, I'm just like, Mr. Cotter. Mr. Cotterman is dead. In comes Luger, whistling away. We talked a little bit about Luger and how odd this performance is. This whole thing of how he wants to be this media liaison, and he starts going off about people in the media and stuff. He comes in whistling, and Barney's like, "Do you want to hear a joke, Inspector?" And he goes into this whole tirade about how horrible it is working in homicide, and just, you can't help the people that you actually need to help, that need that. And he just really going, it's a great performance. And I thought that was really nice. But then to go from the death to the whistling and then to this big tirade, and then it's like, I was expecting a capper. I was actually expecting Luger to be like, "Well, that's not a very funny joke, Barn," like something, but it just felt like this whole thing. Because, to your point, within a few minutes, it's okay. Alex does agree to go out with Harris. There's this whole thing of like, well, maybe he doesn't because he's so depressed after Cotterman. But eventually, when she offers to make him dinner at home, he perks up and it's like, oh, okay. And then, you get that epilogue with here's all the files coming back. Oh, hey, there's a shooting spree at a bowling alley. Isn't it nice that we don't have to go over there? And then the whole wrap up of what do they call him? Mr. Gladman, the trash bag killer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Harris starts talking like he's fucking Mindhunter. And then Barney takes the air out of it by saying he left his wallet in one of the garbage bags. I thought that was a good joke. But again, we just had a character die in a horrific way, off screen, granted, but a horrific way. Our hearts are still like in our hands here. Maybe with a commercial break in between that would have worked a little bit better, but man, oh man, it just, with no commercials and going from one to the next, it was tough going.
I really wanted Hal Linden to go, "See, Luger, we live in a society." It's just, that monologue is like, 100%. We understand why you're upset, but also like, what the fuck, show? Like, genuinely, this is so tonally bizarre for a show that even in its most serious moments is not. And oh, by the way, we kind of already glossed over. You mentioned like, oh, you can't have murderers just getting away with it. This happens right after Barney goes, "Hey, book this woman for like attempted murder and a felony. Like, this woman's going to prison for a very long time." And then, oh, by the way, we now have a guy get murdered. Like, within like the 2 seconds of that, it's like, what in the hell? It just, it seems really mean-spirited, and in a way that this show has never been. And I don't know why it would be, other than they thought that they were being, again, to your point, Otto, it sounds like they thought they were being clever, and like, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. Like, it comes off not clever at all.
Problem is that the murder of Cotterman ultimately makes everything else really not work. Like that last bit with Alan Ann McClary there, and he tells her she's going to go, they're going to arrest her, this and that. And she looks at her husband and she says, "Thank you." Because we've already met Ben Piazza, who brilliantly shows us why you might want to kill him. You know what I mean? Because he's so annoying. So again, all of that stuff might have been funny had we not just been told what we had just been told.
Right.
So it's look, it was a big swing and a big miss, basically.
Two of our favorite shows that we've talked about on here that still keep coming back are things like, I can't remember the episode name. It was the one where Chano had to shoot a guy. That was
a bank, yeah.
Right. That was a super serious moment. And that was like great television, great drama. That was wonderful. The Harris incident got really serious for a while, and they pulled that mix of comedy and drama off beautifully. This just felt so clunky. Like,
right.
To Chris's point, it felt like somebody who they had described those episodes to these writers, and they're just like, "Oh, we can do that. We can mix drama and comedy, no problem." Yeah, what a wet fart to start the season off with.
Yeah. It was a big swing and a big miss. It was, it's funny because our wonderful listeners out there don't know, but I was supposed to be on with you guys last, for some episodes in season 6, near the end of season 6, that I specifically wanted to be on because I think it was the episode with Officer Zatelli. Because, I always like to bust Chris's chops about the feeling that I feel looking at it as a kid who was born in the 60s and watched this in its first run, that it was a very progressive show for its time. And I think Chris's generation has difficulty recognizing the progressiveness of old shows because they're not as progressive, obviously, as we think now. So I always like to give him a hard time with that. I wasn't able to do that because I screwed up technologically. It was my fault. I couldn't be So then you said, well, come and join us for the beginning of season 7. And I see Homicide. I'm like, oh my God.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I said, it's almost like they knew they were punishing me for missing the other one. So,
no, never. We would no one would ever intentionally do something like that because that doesn't make for good podcasting.
No. And plus, like I said, we thought season 6 was, a high point, and we're just like, okay, great. What does season 7 have to bring to us? We knew that Noam had directed almost every episode of season 6. We had a very familiar writing staff. We're seeing the same names here for season 7. So I'm like, okay, great. More of the same. And Chris is like, I think Otto said that 7 is bad. I'm like, no, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
I have access to this little book that Otto wrote, and it's not a little book. It's a giant book because it covers every episode.
Kill a child with that.
You could kill Mr. Cotterman with it.
Oh, my God.
And he was beaten to death with a copy of Otto's book.
It's what's called a tome. T-O-M-E.
But no, I mean, I did mention to Mike, I was like, I'm pretty sure, because I read in Otto's book, I read ahead, and I was like, I'm pretty sure Otto said he doesn't like the 7th season. And look, if what's funny is these 2 episodes are really not great together. And I know, I said Wojo's Girl, and Mike, you were like, oh, I don't know if it's that. I mean, it's as bad. I think it's as bad, just in a different way. I don't. It's not bad in this. Wojo's Girl is just fucking boring. It's so boring, and it meanders. This is like a race to the bottom to see how atypical an episode of Barney Miller we can really have. But what's funny is I kind of don't mind the next episode. I actually think the next episode's perfectly fine in a way that's like, oh, look, it's Barney Miller again. It's like back to our originally scheduled programming of Barney Miller, not whatever that bullshit was for those 2 episodes. Because I can't imagine, here's the ultimate question that I have. Can anyone in this episode right here, the 3 of us, genuinely imagine that show that they had there being successful for anyone in the 80s? Good. I mean, if it had started out that way, sure. But this show pivoting like that there and being that show from here on out would be a complete disaster.
Well, it goes against my persona that I've built up on this show already. But I will have to say bravo to you again, Chris. I mean, damn, you're forcing me to give you props tonight. Because you bring up a good point when you say that if people had seen this first. Later in this decade, Danny's last show was a show called Joe Bash, okay? And it was also about a beat cop played by Peter Boyle, thank you. Played by Peter Boyle. And I think it lasted 5, maybe 6 episodes. And the reason it didn't go with pretty much everybody said it was way too dark from the get-go. It was very, very dark. And he was still trying to be funny, but it was too dark for anyone to really enjoy the humor of it. So I think you bring up a good point. And again, though, remember, that was Danny's last at-bat. Danny isn't here for this one. I mean, at least from what I was told, it didn't sound like Danny had really any input for season 6 and 7. He pretty much, by season 7, I believe he was coming into the office, but he was pretty much letting those guys run it. He was staying away from it. Now, I don't know if he had any input, but certainly not by, I didn't get that impression from anyone I spoke with about it. So, but yeah, that's a good point, because no, I don't think it would have, because I think this is just too dark, and the funny doesn't overcome the darkness in this.
Yeah.
So
the next episode, Delegate. Yeah, this is much more of a return to form.
right.
Though that opening shot of this episode is very odd. This kind of over the shoulder shot of Mr. Turner with, I want to say it's Harris and Dietrich on the other side there. And I'm just like, what are we doing over the shoulder shots from? This is this mysterious window that we discovered, Chris, in the last season, where people are looking out this window that we didn't even know existed. And now it looks like it's a shot through the window of these two guys over Mr. Turner's shoulder. I can't remember what Turner's thing was. Oh, he was one of the victims of this robber who only strikes between like 2:45 and 3 o'clock or something like that. The guy in the work release program. And Dietrich gets really pissed off when his major theory is not proven to be true. Not enough Dietrich for me. And
actually,
episode.
I didn't understand why Harris was taking such pleasure in Dietrich being wrong, because he really sort of wasn't wrong.
No,
because he said, well, maybe he's getting out of work then. Well, he sort of was getting out of work. He was getting out of prison then for an hour and a half to go to a class that he didn't go to. So he wasn't really off. I didn't quite understand that part,
Yeah.
But, first of all, we should note, and hopefully that'll still be the case when this episode drops. But we have 2 people in this episode who play husband and wife who are still with us in their 90s. Bob Dishy and Bonnie Bartlett.
I didn't realize that Mr. Dishy was still with us. That's fantastic, because I love him. Chris, we talked about him way back on Twilight Zone.
85, baby.
We're definitely going to be talking about him on Columbo, because if he hasn't already shown up, he's going to show up several times.
Yes, he does. He will be, look at this. I'm turning 60 in January. He is turning 90 in January.
Wow.
Yeah, so he is still around. And, that's interesting. I got him on the phone at one point for this. I don't even remember how I got his number. And I kind of told him what I was doing, and he seemed a little, I don't know if he was out of it or if he just wasn't trusting me or whatever. And he says, well, let me get back to you. And I gave him all the names of people who, with whom I had already spoken, like Max Gale, Helen, and blah, blah, blah. And, but I never heard from him again. So I never got his take on anything. But I am like you. I love Bob Dishy. I think he is so funny. And I've always loved this particular
Yeah. This whole thing that they find he was a delegate from the Democratic National Convention of 1976.
Right. Barney says, that's been over for a couple of months. And he says, is that all it's been?
It's like the Lost Weekend, but it's the Lost 4 years,
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. And for me, though, the real heart of this episode is having Phil Leeds back. I mean, I think this is his 6th appearance out of 7. And I love how Barney is like, do I know you? And I'm like, yeah, you've seen this guy a lot. Last time, I think he was a photographer. And here he is back again and pretending to be an officer and basically eating Levitt's lunch, which I really like. And Levitt gets so mad. Levitt puts on the detective hat for this one to disparage and to finally out this mysterious uniformed police officer who is just doing a wonderful job, and everybody on the floor likes him a lot.
Which, of course, no one ever gave credit to Levitt for, no one ever really warmed up to Levitt. But he first of all, Phil Leeds is,
oh yeah,
I mean, he's got one of the best faces of all time on television, and that's why I know one of the casting directors, I can't remember which one it was, said to me that she loved to cast him just for his face.
I believe that 100%.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He's tremendous.
Yeah. I mean, he made, one of my favorite Mel Brooks movies is History of the World Part 1.
Oh yeah.
Torquemada. I mean, all of that. I mean, he's so good. And it's like just a small little moment, but it makes, I don't know, like he's shown up a lot in this show, but this is oddly endearing and like
can't torque him out of anything.
No, he's also really sad in this episode. Like really, it's like kind of like he's like a really sad old man. Like you almost wonder if like there's one extra part of the story where like, well, when I retired, you know, my wife then died and now I have like nothing to do. So this is what I'm doing, as opposed to like sitting and being like a sad widower at home. Like you could like see them building even further on that story if they really wanted to, because that's how kind of endearing the character is, to the point where, you know, Barney is like, this is a big deal. It's a big problem. But by the end of the time and he's walking him out the door, it's like you almost wish this guy would just stick around. Like in a lot of ways, like for me personally, I'm like, oh, his Advil leads to the cast, whatever. Like I'm not going to complain.
Well, that's what made that last part of it so funny, is that he doesn't understand why Barney is going to let him go.
Right.
Because he knows they need the help.
And he's going to let him go, and basically he's just going to go to another precinct and do the exact same thing.
Well, that's the great line when Wojo says, hey, Nash, where are you going next? And he's like, I haven't decided.
I love it. It.
But I mean, the stuff with Bob Dishy, I also think really works for what we've seen with the show before. And kind of, it's more in line with what we've seen with the show up until this point. It doesn't feel so at odds with the tone of the show the way the last two episodes did. I mean, it's not a paranoid proof exactly, but it's a guy who's completely, you know, I've had many sexual encounters. Like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, when his wife shows up and she's just like, I forgive you. And he's like, but I've done all these horrible things. Oh, that's okay. We'll work through it.
Is there no depth to your like forgiveness? It's like, I guess not. Like this, you know, it's way more in line with what I was expecting for this show going into the 80s. And, you know, Hill Street Barney Miller is not what I was expecting. And that is totally what those last two episodes were. But here's the thing. In an alternate universe, the show could pivot and have done that. And it would have been that would have totally been a thing. And like, all right, awesome. I'm like, the show kind of does a different thing in the 80s because it's keeping up with the times. I think it would have been an awful shame to waste all of these really great comedic actors on something that is not best suited for their talents, not because they're not talented enough, but because the people writing for them aren't talented enough to really, these aren't a botchco. Like they're not, like that's a different expectation. Those are a different set of rules you're playing by. I think that the people who write for this show, when they write really well for it, are as good as any of those shows, if not better, because this show resonates with police officers more than most shows, because it really is about what it's like, as opposed to what everybody thinks it's supposed to be like.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the things, was it in this episode? I think it was in this episode. I think it's at the very beginning, the opening of the show, where Dietrich is talking to Barney about the hockey game.
Hockey, yeah.
It's so weird.
That was a great example of the writers who, well, Dungan and Stein probably weren't even there yet for that. But if you remember an old episode, I think it's season 2, maybe season 3, the Russian defector. You remember the guy who wanted to defect?
Oh, yeah.
And he played in the orchestra for the ballet. And in that episode, Dietrich is talking to Marty about the beauty of Swan Lake or something like that. And he's obviously very, knows what he's talking about. And then Marty says, oh, did you see it? And he's like, no, I had tickets to the hockey game. So we know already that he's a hockey fan and he gave up ballet to go see hockey. Now, in this episode, it's a complete 180 where he's like, oh, no, I went to the ballet. I don't, the hockey game is just for people who want to see, violence.
On the ice.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's that thing where in those days of the 70s and 80s, the guys, well, the writers didn't necessarily stay either. So, but there was not an awareness. There was no big book of how it was going from beginning to end. So those things, now that used to happen way more in 60s sitcoms where, whatever you did one week, the next week, the slate was completely wiped clean. There were no real continuing storylines or personality traits or,
Speaking of The Simpsons.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
I mean, that's like after the show effectively jumped the shark, that became the biggest criticism is like, Homer's been a fucking astronaut. So it's like, at what point have we just like not gone around the bend completely? And
yeah,
like you point that out. It's like, man, just like a genuine misunderstanding of the show. But at the time, who cared? Like at the time, Phil Leeds played 7 different characters in this show. That's not a thing that happens now on like, even on a show like, I don't know, like a young Sheldon or something like an example of a show I don't watch, but I'm sure I can speak to the idea that like the same actor, if they're on that show, is probably playing the same character, not a different character every time, and no one is making note of it. And that's even just a light and frothy comedic show, which is exactly for a actual network drama, you cannot have the same actor playing different characters unless someone makes note of it, because it will make no sense. And like that's the thing. It's like those other things. Yeah, it's kind of odd. It's like someone's playing this show in a minor key, not the major key it's normally being played in, which is kind of odd.
Speaking of Dietrich, what I really want to see is I want to see a prequel so that we can see the merry mix-up that caused Dietrich to become a detective.
I know, that was a weird line.
It's so strange. I'm like, wait, what?
This is the
merry mix-up?
This is the weird season of Barney Miller. That's what this is. Like the season where anything can happen.
Yeah, it always does.
Yeah,
it's the Twilight Zone season.
Yeah,
and speaking of Twilight Zone, Chris, now I've been too kind and encouraging to you all episode. So I will make one criticism, and that is you said that we were sold the idea that Arthur Dietrich was an alien in earnest, and I would disagree with that. I don't think anybody was supposed to take that seriously.
I don't know. The more Chris talks about it, the more I buy that theory, man.
Explain to me why they did it then, Otto, for other than yucks, when they've done it more than once.
Are you talking about the lie detector thing?
The lie detector thing? There's also Richard Libertini.
Yes.
Oh, the Richard Libertini one.
Oh, you're a Dietrich?
A Dietrich? Otto, explain that one away. I'll wait.
Wait a minute. Okay, but wait a minute. He's not an alien in that storyline idea. That guy came back from the future.
So he's a time traveler.
No, Dietrich isn't. Only Libertini is. Libertini goes into the future, so he sees what becomes of Arthur Dietrich.
I more interpret it as Arthur Dietrich is in that future.
Yes.
Yeah, he's in the future.
He's in that future.
So how is he able to live that far in the future? Is he an alien?
Oh, that's what you're saying.
No, the guy, if you remember, the guy wasn't that far in the future, if you remember.
Yes, not too distant future.
Yeah, he was only like, he was only like 30 years into the future or something.
But didn't he say that there was like world wars? Do you guys remember that? Like it was apocalyptic.
Well,
wasn't it?
You have to invest in zinc, that's for sure.
Well, and again, because I have way too much time on my hands, I did the mathematical equation for everybody. And in fact, he would have made as much money with zinc as he would have made with gold.
Oh, that's hilarious. Wow.
If he had bought the amount of zinc that he was going to buy, the increase in price over those 30 years would have been equal to gold.
Wow.
Fucked up.
That's funny.
So I mean, we can disagree. That's perfectly fine, Otto. But to be fair, I will say you would agree it's not outside of the realm of possibility for that to be the case, given the in earnest other kinds of supernatural and paranormal things the show has introduced, like all of the Kenneth Tygar stuff. It's not outside of the realm of possibility, especially given the 70s and that kind of stuff being really in the 70s. Yeah. See Eric Von Daniken, Chariots of the Gods, all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but I'm saying they left room for there to be something like that just because why not? It's funny. And it is funny.
Well, I'm probably thin-skinned about it because when you go down that path, I think of more like Night Court. And Night Court, which was obviously influenced by Barney, became much more of a fantasy all the time. You know, it was so fantastical, the storylines, that I don't like when people compare Night Court and Barney, I say, well, yes, but one was a realistic program and one was a fantasy program.
So you bristle at that, is what
I do. Yes, I bristle at that. And you know me, Chris, I don't bristle easy.
Yeah. Right. I will say I understand that, but at the same time, like, I think this show has done a very good job at balancing a fun sense of that with, again, being self-aware that like those kinds of things can't get in the way of being realistic. And Night Court just like at some point gave up on that, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It worked in the favor of that show, and it made that show a show that people remember. And you know, and that's fine. And that's fine. Like but I understand why you would bristle at that too, because in a lot of ways, I bet people, and we never asked this question, Mike, but I'm sure people that really like Kolchak bristle when people compare it to the X-Files. I'm sure they probably bristle. Yeah. I'm sure they probably bristle at it because it's like, well, this is better. It's like, I kind of get it. Like, I can understand why you would feel that way, because like they're comparative, but they're not in a lot, and they're comparative, but in a lot of ways they are very different. And the things that make them different are the things that make them way better than other things that are similar to them.
100%. And by the way, I happen to love the Richard Libertini episode. And
it's an amazing episode.
That whole joke is a favorite of mine and my friend, Dr. Madigan, who Mike knows. By the way, Tim, I told Tim I was meeting with you guys tonight, and he said, well, please give my regards to Mike White and to Chris Stasio. He's a big fan of yours, Chris.
Oh, nice. Good. I love knowing that other people find what I say is really millennial and off-putting.
There you go. Now, did I say that?
No, I will say though, like in a lot of ways, like this show has done a better job than even a show like Kolchak did at trying to be progressive. And this is a very progressive show. Like it's in a way that like the moments that it has those missteps seem bigger than they would otherwise because of how good of a job this show always does.
That's fair. Yeah.
And there's a reason you wrote a book about this show. There's a reason we've spent 3+ years of our lives talking about this show. There's a reason cops still love this show. And I think even if you showed it to a Zoomer or millennial cop, so someone my age or younger, they would still probably find some humor in the mundanity that is shown on screen in this show. And that's because this show is important. And that's why you wrote a book about it. And that's why we're talking about it. And that's why when it has missteps, they really suck, because this show, for the most part, is like, and I think, Mike, I think I can speak for both of us, this is like the most solid show that we've watched together so far in a lot of ways. Like a lot of the other stuff we've watched together have had some episodes that have been really clunkers. This show, we've spent most of our time saying, this is a perfectly good episode. This is fun. It might be average, but I mean, this show's average is still better than most shows' best. And that's a pretty glaring, or like a glowing, I don't know. It's pretty hard for me to say a lot of bad stuff about the show, but when the show has those moments that don't hit the same notes that it usually does, it's just like, whoa, who's writing this shit?
Yeah. It was like I say, there's nothing, there's no way to explain Homicide.
No.
There's no way to explain it.
Because it doesn't even stay through to this next episode. Like, this next episode is such a massive recorrection of the show's tone. It's like, what did you just have? Like, did you just like have a dream episode for 2 episodes? Like, where is this coming from? It's so strange. It is.
Well, the other thing I said, I think I had to have said this in the book, and that is, the other thing that I never understood about the Homicide episode was, they're going to change all the precincts and they're all going to be specialty squads now. So one's going to be Homicide, one's going to be narcotics, blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, excuse me, every single movie or TV show we saw in the 1970s already had all big city police forces like that. And in fact, in one of the earlier Barney episodes, doesn't Barney lose the inspector or whatever he was going to be to a guy who has been in narcotics? And he says, oh, sure, he was in narcotics, so he had a lot of high profile arrests and stuff under his, in his group. So that part didn't make sense either, because every big city police force is broken up into those departments.
Well, it feels like you would have like a specialty department on like the 3rd floor, the first floor is uniforms. The second floor is like these detectives who are just there for anything. And then the specialty up on the next floor. Like if I were to set up police departments, but yeah, it is weird when, there are so many like, oh yeah, precinct 172, the homicide department, like they're always embedded as part of the other people, but they have specialists there. You think about LA Confidential and it's like, well, Jack Vincennes got bounced over to narcotics and Exley's working homicides. It's like, they're all working for the same precinct. They're just doing different jobs.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you have to go to one other precinct entirely to go to narcotics. Like that literally makes no
go
sense.
To the 20th. I think that's on 10th, or no, it's the 10th over on the 20th.
Yeah.
It's like, what is this? What is this insanity? Like, this is not how this works. Like, there's no bureaucrat on enough cocaine in 1980 to suggest this change, because this is such a change to the workflow. Like, that makes no sense. Like, you couldn't even address this in one episode. This would be something that you would have to be mentioning throughout the season that they're going to do at the beginning of the next season. And it's like, okay, you're giving us all of these things and, they're adding new people and other people are being taken. No, they just one episode, this is happening. And then, it's not anymore. It's like, whoa. Yeah. And then again, now we're just right back to the show as it was previously programmed. It's like, whoa. So the other question that I have is, does the Delegate work better as then if we just, the Delegate's the first episode of the 7th season. Does it work as the first episode of the 7th season?
It would work fine as the first episode of the 7th season.
I think it would be, totally acceptable.
Yeah. No, it would work fine.
We just, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
Well, the other thing that I always thought was funny too is if we're supposed to believe that this is this a homicide squad for the entire city of New York?
Right.
Yes.
So in any given shift, you have 3 detectives for all the murders on the island of Manhattan? That
doesn't make sense.
That's going to be a long night. Barney checks his glasses. I got 75 cases, became 1,500 in the matter of that. It's so weird because again, it's never mentioned again. So cool.
Well, I just want to thank you, gentlemen, for bringing me on to trash a double episode of a show that I spent 6 years of my life writing a book about. So thank you very much.
I mean, again, it for me, it really Wojo's Girl was meant to be a pilot for another show.
Yeah.
So that for me has always felt like that's the explanation. That's the explanation that makes sense. Even if it's bad, it makes sense. There's no explanation that would make Homicide make sense because it's just for what they did, and then they go right back to an episode where Phil Leeds is just a happy ex-CPA who's filing paperwork while Mr. Cotterman's getting murdered by young punks, Death Wish style. What the fuck show? I love this show, but even I have my moments of being Barney Miller has maybe gone as close to jumping the shark as the show will probably ever get, I feel like.
No, people on Facebook are experts and we're just amateurs with what we're doing.
Good.
I was reading the other day on the Barney Miller Facebook group, the fan group, that Wojo's Girl was one of 5 or 6 shows that they had planned because they were going to split up the entire precinct and they would all have their own solo shows. I smell bullshit in that statement, and I wanted to call this guy out, but I figured I would go to resident Barney Miller expert Otto Bruno and ask him, any truth to that?
Not as far as I know. Not a single person, not Max, not Hale. No one ever said that to me. Tony Sheehan did not say that.
This guy's trying to sell you the Epcot.
So you're saying that they felt like, there was going to be a separate Dietrich show and there's going to be a separate Harris show, and
like a hotel in every section of Epcot. You got to tailor to every person who loves this show. You got the Harris show, and that doesn't even sound real. How?
No,
you know what? As much
doesn't
as
make sense at all.
As much as I love this show, there's no way that they could pull off an Arthur Dietrich, Steve Landisberg show like that. It just wouldn't work. As much as I love him, it wouldn't work at all.
First of all, no one ever said anything like that to me. B, Danny wasn't crazy about Fish splitting off into its own show because he wanted to. Yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't just his problems with Abe Vigoda. It was also the fact that he felt he needed to focus all his attention on this one show to make it the best show that he wanted it to be. So that's, if anyone ever thought of that or anyone ever brought that idea up, I can guarantee you, I mean, to the, as much as I can guarantee you anything about this, that it was certainly not Danny Arnold's idea, if anyone ever floated that idea out. But again, like I say, Hal Linden never mentioned anything like that. Max was the one who told me that, they wanted him to do a pilot because they wanted to spin him off, and he didn't really want to be spun off. So he had to get a separate agreement saying that if he didn't want to do it, he didn't have to after he saw the result.
Smart man.
Yeah.
God.
So
I mean, like the smart decision.
That doesn't sound right to me.
Okay.
Would you say that?
Like I said, everybody's an expert, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that doesn't pass the mustard? That doesn't pass. I mean, that just sounds too wild. Like we already saw what happened when Gregory Sierra was given his own show. Like because that
that was kind of funny show, and it was not given much of a chance. It was given like 6 episodes.
Yep, that sounds about right.
And it was, and I thought that show was kind of funny from what I remember of it. I haven't been able to find any. It had Gregory Sierra, it had Ralph Manza, it had Rosanna DeSoto, it had Alan Miller, it had a lot of good people in it. But yeah, no, that does not. I don't know where did they say where they got that from?
No, and I almost engaged, but I know that arguing on the internet is not a smart thing to do.
Arguing on the internet is the smartest thing any one of us could be doing. At a time like this, in these uncertain and troubling times, the best thing we can do is argue with someone on the internet about Barney Miller. I think the funnier thing is to call them out on an episode of this show, which is what you did.
Yes, because I know they won't listen. Because if I post, Homicide Part 1, Part 2, The Delegate, they'll say, I love The Delegate. That was great. Oh, the writing in Homicide was terrific. So...
Well, that's the question that I have for you, Mr. Bruno, because you are the Barney Miller expert. Season 7, as fans perceive it, not a favorite season either.
Oh well, I mean, I can't speak for the general population. Obviously, I was, I took it on as a job to write about an entire show. So and one of the things that some of the people who were fans early on told me, in fact, a couple of people on Facebook that I had met, this was way before, had said, well, I'd want to see this, this, and this. And one of the things they wanted to see was my opinion of things. Like they said, we'd want the author to give his opinion. So, again, I here's my feeling about it. My thing about Barney was always that I thought it was woefully underrated for the time that it played. Everyone always talked about All in the Family, MASH, all these other shows. And Barney kind of got the short shrift, kind of got forgotten, lost in the shuffle, whatever the case may be. And I always felt that it was underappreciated. I felt, as we've already said tonight, I felt that one of its strong points was the fact that despite serious subject matter throughout the course of the series, they were almost always, able to make it funny, even when they were dealing with serious issues. There were always moments of humor throughout every episode. For me, I think season 7 overall is the weakest because I think it got away from the heart of the show, which was that human condition type of thing that I think set it apart so much. And season 1 is difficult just because the characters haven't found themselves yet. But every show goes through that. We all have our different opinions. I mean, I've said this to my daughter before, and she doesn't agree with this, but I think any sitcom that attempts to go beyond 5 full seasons is is treading on very challenging ground. Because I think most sitcoms after 5 full seasons can't help but reuse program idea. I mean, it's just, you know what I mean? It's not the same as a drama.
On what I'm curious, on what grounds does she disagree?
Well, because she loves shows like Scrubs, which she felt the only bad season was that last extra season that they brought back. Or, it's just her. I just think it's because there's certain shows that she loves. And like she loved the Frasier, but she says, yeah, the last couple seasons were bad. She goes, but it certainly was funny after the 5th season. And again, I'm not saying that no sitcom should ever go past 5 seasons. I'm just saying it becomes more and more difficult. I think 5 is the ideal for a great sitcom. Now, here's the one that, in my opinion, went for a fairly long time, 7 seasons, and really never stumbled. And that's Mary Tyler Moore's show. Mm-hmm. Now, again, it unheard of. That show is still amazing to me because if you watch it all the way through, it changes, the characters change, but it remains funny in different ways. And even as the characters are growing and changing, it's still funny. It still has heart. It's still intelligent. It's really phenomenal, quite honestly. Dick Van Dyke Show, a perfect show. 5 seasons. They had, I don't know, maybe 3-4 bad episodes in 5 seasons. Unheard of. Absolutely unheard of. But there are so few shows that can do that. And certainly Barney Miller, seasons 2 through 6, I would hold up with the best of any 5 seasons of any show, any sitcom ever made. And that includes All in the Family or MASH. All in the Family and MASH both are the two that I never had the same affection for because I felt they became too much of a dramedy as they went on. Now that said, I watched. Yeah.
Some of the Alan Alda episodes could get a little thick sometimes. And he always had that, he had those same jokes where he would say things 3 times in a different way. I won't fire this gun. I can do this to this gun. I can do this to this gun. I can do that to this gun, but I will not fire this gun. And yeah, some of those were just much. I have huge affection for it. I haven't done a full rewatch, but growing up with MASH, it was, a perfect show. And I just remember the final episode being a great final episode. But yeah, I imagine that if I go back and I watch seasons 6 through 10 or whatever, that they're probably not going to be. I mean, obviously, once Henry Blake died, once Frank left, once even Trapper, I liked BJ, but Trapper was where it was at. Once those 3 principals left, each succeeding departure was a lessening of the quality. Yes, I did like a lot of Charles Winchester, but not nearly as much as Frank. I mean, David Ogden Steers is fucking fantastic, but man, Frank Burns just was such a great character.
Yeah, no, it just went on too long, and for me, and like that's why I say I don't hold it in the same that everyone else. Now, I just watched last night. I watched an episode of All in the Family, and every time I watch it, one of the episodes I watched last night was season 2, I think. So it was still, but I had no problem with the subject matter of the All in the Family episodes, because again, they covered serious stuff and were making it really funny. They were also somewhat, they were balanced because there's times throughout that series where Michael is the annoying one. Mm-hmm. You can see where, Michael takes himself too seriously and becomes kind of pretentious and whatever. And that's set off against Archie's bigotry. And so, it's like not just one bad person all the time. And again, Mike's not bad. He's a good guy, but it's not so heavy-handed and one-sided. In fact, Danny Arnold, by the way, to bring it back to Danny Arnold, we were just talking about this because my wife watched this episode with me last night, and she said, God, I loved Edith so much. And I said, Danny Arnold, in one of the interviews I got, the guy he was talking to was a guy named Bob Claster. I guess he used to be a radio guy in LA or something. And Danny said to this Bob Claster something that I've said often to my daughter, the TV person, and that is, you gotta have likable characters. You gotta like the characters. And Claster said to this guy, to Danny, in this interview, which was like 1978, and he said, well, how do you explain Archie Bunker? And he said, well, that's a good question. He says, look at Edith Bunker.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy said, well, what do you mean? He says, Edith, we would all agree, is a wonderful person. And she loves Archie. Therefore, if she loves Archie, there's got to be something redeeming about that character. Mm-hmm. She is so loyal to him, so devoted to him. And I'm like, wow, that was an interesting insight into that, because he could be so awful, but at the same time, he was funny, and you knew that he was ignorant.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, she was the Marge Simpson of her day.
She's the redemptive arc of the character.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to bring it back to the Simpsons, Marge Simpson she's that for Homer. That's how Homer's lovable, a lot less abrasive. But I mean, those early seasons, you could make the case that like jerk ass Homer and all of that really fun stuff. Once the show got bad, or at least what was bad for a while, apparently it's good again. But I think it's really interesting, because I was going to ask you, and then you said it, 2 through 6. It's like that right there are the gates, because the first season of this show was very not off, but odd. Like it hadn't found its footing yet, which is perfectly fine. Like, I'm not sure anybody's going to go tell anyone to watch the first season of TNG. Actually, I know most people wouldn't. But that does not inform the rest of the quality of that show, which is, again, one of the great shows of television. And this show is in that same conversation.
What's TNG?
The Next Generation, Star Trek, The Next Generation.
Star Trek.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, it's not for everybody, neither is Barney Miller, but that's okay. I think that's the thing about really quality classic television, is like, even though it might not be for you, if you watch an episode of it, you can understand like how and why and who it resonated with. And Barney Miller, like, I don't know, I'm excited to see what a misstep for this show looks like, frankly, because it's been so good up until this point. Like, all right, like, if this season is kind of strange and odd and it does weird things, like, okay, like, it can't get any worse than Homicide.
No, I don't think you'll see anything like this again. Like I say, the episode, and I just looked it up, is coming up later in this season. It's episode 13, called The Librarian, which doesn't give away the storyline that I'm talking about. But it's very, very serious. But there is, especially even at the end, but even throughout it, you see that humanity, which I treasure so much in Barney Miller. You see that in that episode coming up, The Librarian, that you'll recognize when you get to it, that, oh, this is what Otto was talking about.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I love the fact that this show does have those moments, because Mike mentioned it with the Harris incident. Like, it gets serious in those moments, but that's when it shows. And when Shano shot the guy in that episode, like, those are the moments where the show really shines, because it goes that one step further. And I mean, that's why this show is what it is. And a lot of it is Hal Linden. Like, a lot of it really is Hal Linden as well. Like, credit to him.
What season is The Slave in? Have you guys watched that one yet?
Yeah, we did watch that one.
Was that season 6?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because that's another good one. That's serious but also funny, and wry and ironic. It's got a lot of layers.
And the Uniform Day. The Uniform Day is kind of serious too. I think we talked about that one, because that's when Barney and Harris kind of break as being friends, and they become more kind of frenemies. I think even now, like, well, maybe not. Maybe this season they'll just be completely weird to one another, which would track, given that this season is shaping up to be unlike anything we've seen up until this.
Well, again, I'm excited for. I watched about a week or so ago. I watched The Sting with my son, and he had never seen it before. And of course, I'd seen it numerous times. And I said, but it's fun to watch The Sting with someone who's never seen it before, for them to kind of get that. And so it's fun for me knowing what you still have ahead of you, Chris, that will, the roller coaster that will take you up and down. And
I'm excited. The show is being weird, and I'm also glad to know that you kind of let it out a little bit. I'm glad to know that the show kind of redeems itself as well in the end, because
I think it does. Yeah,
that would because I haven't read it. I haven't read ahead in your book. I've only been reading as much as we've been watching. Okay. I don't want to know how this ends, because this is gonna be the first show where I'm genuinely sad when we're done with it. Not that I'm saying we weren't with Kolchak. I think we were when we did some things with Father Malone on Dreams for Sale. We were kind of getting a little wistful about that, or with Rankin, but this is a pretty big project that, Mike, you and I have been doing for quite some time. And we're getting into the home stretch, and I'm glad to know that this show doesn't do what seemingly everything else has, which is take a big shit right at the end. Everything else we've watched has taken a shit at the end and not cleaned it up. I'm glad this show takes a shit, but cleans it up at least in the end, because that puts some joy in my heart.
Well, in our next episode, we're going to get reintroduced to an actor who is now playing a new character as Dorsey. We will be talking about Dorsey, Agent Orange, and Call Girl, one of our favorite subjects around here, very pro-sex worker. And we've got yet another Call Girl on here. So we'll be talking about those next month when we come back with some more The Life and Times of Captain Barney Miller. Until then, Otto, what are you working on these days, sir?
Actually, since last we talked, remember, did I spill the bag on what the next showbiz book I was researching?
Book. I can't wait.
Oh my God, you and Madigan with friggin' Victor Buono. No, I'm actually for Bear Manor. I'm working on a Dean Martin book. But what happened is, I had written a series of articles for many years for this publication in Chicago, and I'm now putting those together.
Ooh.
And that's going to be a collection of profiles, but that's a baseball book on Italian-American baseball players.
That's great.
That I'm doing for McFarland. So, I got a couple things on my plate right now.
That's terrific. I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah. A lot of serious work I have to get to after the holidays, because I have some deadlines coming up.
And Chris, how about yourself?
Just running the ship over to Weirding Way Media, doing audio podcasts with you, Mike. We got some new stuff coming after the first of the year, some Patreon stuff, talking about James Bond movies on Patreon, doing some other weird esoterica things. And we'll see. Sopranos, who knows? WeirdingWayMedia.com is where you can find all of it. And the Culture Cast, that thing too. What about you, Mike?
Well, I can find everything that I do over at WeirdingWayMedia.com, including the Projection Booth, which is a movie podcast that I do, I would say once a week, but I was just counting up, and this year I have put out 178 episodes so far.
Whoa.
Yeah, that
overachiever.
I'm like, really? Is that number can't be right?
So. It's right. It's wrong, but it's right.
well, now I feel bad, because that means I was on less than 2% of them then.
Brother, I don't even know what the number would be for the two of us together, because
Well, when you look at some of those things, like this, what was it, 7-8 part Raiders of the Lost Ark series that we did, the Reading of the Lost Ark, where we had 3 main things plus 3 follow-up discussions plus 2 interviews plus a review of Dial of Destiny. So those add up, right. That's all part of that special reports number, 120 special reports. So some were, 10 minutes long, others were an hour long. So you never knew where you're going to be in that. But
wow.
Yeah, so those are all over at weirdingwaymedia.com, and you can also check out my Patreon at patreon.com/projection booth, where you can get all that stuff with a very minimal amount of ads. Pretty much the ads that are in there are just ads for other Weirding Way Media shows, so you can always have fun with that. I want to thank John Walker for our theme music. I want to thank everybody for listening. Please, if you like the show, rate and review it. If you don't like the show, then shut the hell up.
If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror. We'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.